Yesterday, North Gauteng High Court Judge Bashier Vally ruled that President Jacob Zuma is to hand over all documents to the Democratic Alliance's lawyers within 5 days, explaining why he dismissed former Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan and his deputy, Minister Mcebisi Jonas. The court also ruled, I beg your pardon, that Zuma must also pay for the legal costs of the court action brought by the Democratic Alliance. But to talk to us a little bit more about this, we're joined on the line by Shadrack Gutto. He's a retired law professor as well as a constitutional law expert. Prof, great to have you. Thanks for being our guest on the program.
Thank you very much. I'm retired, but I'm emeritus professor at the University still.
Excellent, excellent. Indeed you are. Prof, let me let me ask you the first question. How significant is this ruling in the President's dismissal of former Pravin Gordhan and his deputy?
I think that this is really groundbreaking because what it is trying to do, the ruling is really to say that the president has a responsibility because he is a president which is a constitutional, has a constitutional mandate and functions to perform. And when you do that, you are required to do so in a manner that is diligent, according to the wording in the Constitution, but also the wording of a former Constitutional Court ruling, which was it has to be rational. So if you can't explain that properly and communicate with the public, then it may lead to autocracy and tyranny. Because the manner in which the president did it, it was damaging even the dignity of the then Minister for Finance. It was called as if even a child, you don't call them the way the president ordered them to come back when they were really in a national mission, meeting people and so on. So it did more damage to South Africa than it really helped. And therefore the president must be able to provide good reasons why that was done. And I think that the court made a right decision in this particular matter.
What about the Constitution? I mean, the Constitution basically stating that the president has the right to fire and hire ministers at his own discretion without making those reasons public.
That is quite correct, but you have to read the Constitution as a whole. The provisions dealing with the presidency, cabinet, and so on has to be read within the context of the founding values of the Constitution, which is under sections 1 and 2, but also section 200, as I've already mentioned, 237, that to do so you must do it diligently. And the minister or anyone who is appointed has the right to dignity, which were destroyed and was being treated as if it was just a cloth being used to, mop rubbish on the floor. And I think that that is wrong. Our presidency or anyone that is performing a function in the country ought to respect human values and deal with them accordingly. So I think that that is the part that is important in this particular case. But of course, the president does have a constitutional right to appoint and to remove members of the cabinet and deputy ministers and so on. Yes, that is quite correct.
So when we look at this decision by the court, the ANC, of course, reacting, and what we're leading with in our news is the fact that the ANC spokesperson Zizi Kodwa is saying that he hopes the president would appeal this ruling. Can the president actually appeal this?
Yes, the president has a right to appeal. The Constitution does provide for access to court in any matter that can be decided by application of the law. So if the president believes that the law may be on his side and that the judge made a wrong interpretation of the Constitution, he has every right to appeal. The question is whether there is any prospect of success if he appeals. So I think that this case is, as I've already indicated, it is very new, it is breaking a new ground, and it should be, the matter should go on appeal up to the highest court of the land so that we clarify the limitations of the powers that are given to the president and other persons. It is not only the president. The, premiers of provinces have similar rights and so on with regard to their cabinet, and so it has a far-reaching implications, and I believe it would be good for it to go to the highest court. The question of the president actually paying for the cost, we have to say, did the court really mean that he has to pay it individually, or is he paying it as a president? And in my view, I think the president still have the room to be able to have this paid for by the state so that we get a proper clarification of the law.
What about our former finance minister? Let's talk about Nhlanhla, because it was almost reliving history. Now, the same thing happened. The reason that was given was that the then finance minister, Nhlanhla, had another job, and this never ever happened. It was that he was going to take up a position at the BRICS Bank. That never happened, and those were the reasons given, but it was never, that was never proved, and in fact, it turned out to be, again, something that needed more explanation, and yet we've never ever got that. Could that perhaps come into play?
Well, whatever the higher court rules in this matter, and if it goes to the Constitutional Court, it will apply also to him having to explain why he removed Nene, because I think that Nene deserves to know. In this particular case, I think the DA is, of course, wanted Pravin Gordhan to remain the minister because he's been projecting himself as somebody who is trying to save the country from bankruptcy and so on. And from that point of view, the DA may have a case to say they are pointing out Gordhan, but whatever ruling is made will require that the president also explains why he was lying to the country by indicating that he was sending Nene to the new bank and so on, which was not true. So I think the president lied to the country, and the matter, I hope, will be interrogated and clarified.
Yeah. Just as we wrap this up, as a final answer, I'm reading an article by Pierre de Vos as well, and he, of course, is a law expert. He is saying the angle he's taking. He's saying that if President Zuma just tells the court that he fired former Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan for political reasons and not because of an intelligence report, he'll be off the hook, and that'll be the end of the case. Is this a possibility? Do you think this could possibly be the way that Zuma's lawyers go?
Well, I think the president went far to try and divert public attention from his political decisions by mentioning that there was intelligence report. So Professor Pierre de Vos is right that the president can indicate that it was for political reasons, but he has already lied to the nation by indicating that there is something called intelligence report. Is there one, and what does it really say? And I think that is where the president got caught. In this case, he can't say. So I agree with that was, but at the same time, I think the president went too far to be able to expose himself by there's an intelligence report, let him produce it, if it is there at all.
All right, we leave it there.
I doubt if there's one, yeah.
Let's leave it there,
and
Professor.
If it is credible.
Thank you so much, Professor Shadrack Gutto, talking to us about this ruling that came out yesterday. And, of course, the response from the President's team, basically Advocate Ishmael Semenya, acting for Zuma, said that the DA is on a fishing expedition and nothing more. All right, we leave it there this morning. We'd love to hear your opinions if you have any on that one. Let's take a break. When we return, you know, it's the final day of the World Economic Forum, but we're taking a look at Brand SA. That comes under the spotlight after this. Stay tuned.